Hello, everybody. Welcome to Webinar Wednesday. My name is Martijn Lofvers. I'm the Chief Trend Watcher of Supply Chain Media. You may also know me as the Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Movement, European Quarterly magazine, but also a newsletter and LinkedIn group. So welcome with this live webinar. We have a great webinar lining up this coming hour. We're going to talk about conquering the aftermarket with superior logistics. And we have, next to Blue Ridge, we have also a case study, a live customer case. Quite an amazing story, I would say, about how you can effectively implement supply chain software and improve your performance actually in a few months. All right, so next to me, so you see myself on the left-hand side, it's myself. In the middle, you see Sverre Rosmo. He's a General Manager of Nordics of Blue Ridge. Sverre, welcome.
Thank you, Martijn.
And next on the right, you see Thomas Bach-Nilsen, IT Manager or CIO Hasselberg Group. Thomas, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So first, a few things. This webinar will be recorded, and the PDF of the presentation will be made available within 24 hours. So don't worry. Everybody is on mute, the whole audience, but you can still ask questions. And you see the Q&A functionality on the right-hand side. You see some buttons with a cloud and a bar, and you see the Q&As. So please, if you ask questions, do this in the Q&A functionality. We have a Q&A at the end, but you can ask your questions during the webinar, so feel free. And if these questions are in line of the conversation Sverre, Thomas, and myself will having, I will include this question so you can join the conversation, I would say. You can enlarge your screen. You see the small arrows on the upper right side of the screen, so you can enlarge the screen a bit. And if you still have questions afterwards, we will be there at 5 o'clock, and afterwards for 30 minutes, we will be sitting down in the lounge. So we will have a further conversation with you if you like. You can join this conversation, and we'll have a further discussion. So you can actually ask the questions one-on-one to Thomas and Sverre afterwards. So join us if you like. All right. What we have done with the supply chain media, we are doing a lot of research. We are also creating an IT subprime map. But what we have done last year, we did a survey among 106 manufacturing and wholesale companies in Europe. And we asked them what would be their investment plans in the next 12 months. And what you see, SNLP, Sales and Operations Planning, is number one. And visibility is number two. What you see here is we made a distinction between the overall audience, that's the blue bar, and the orange one. And the orange bar are the more advanced company on the supply chain maturity scale of Gartner from 1 to 5. And you see some differences in orange. And basically, like prescriptive analytics, you see the more advanced companies are moving in that direction. So you see a lot of investments. A lot of companies are looking and investing in supply chain software, but there's also a distinction between the overall companies and the more leading companies. Sverre, what is your comment on this graph?
It's quite recognizable for us in Blue Ridge, I would say. The sales and operations planning field is rapidly growing. In the past, we met a lot of customers that started out with supply chain planning and then added the sales and operations planning as a phase 2. But more and more we see that companies want to start out with the whole package, so to speak, at once. They find it so attractive that they don't see any reason to wait with going straight into sales and operations planning.
Yeah. And what I also see quite recently, especially because of the growing inflation and the focus on price elasticity, and that is something also what we're going to talk about later about Blue Ridge, is that, what we see here, the prescriptive supply chain analytics is also relating to price elasticity. How do you know what will happen if you change your prices of certain products? And there's a huge need because, with the inflation, the price of raw materials going up, companies are wondering, can we raise our prices in which SKUs and to what extent before we lose a lot of market share. But maybe first we go into that area. Sverre, can you introduce yourself as Blue Ridge and what you are doing as a company?
Yes, so Blue Ridge is a software company within the supply chain planning area and also sales and operations planning and pricing and price optimization. We are a global company. We have our main office in Atlanta in the US, and then we have our EU headquarters in Amsterdam, and the Nordic region is then headquartered in Oslo. We have clients all over the globe, but the main areas are then Europe and the US. Started out in the US, and yeah, we are known for rapid implementations. Because the software is quite comprehensive and sophisticated, we don't need to develop, we just implement, I would rather say. So that means that we can see results in months rather than years. And this is something that we're also going to talk about when it relates to Hesselberg in particular. That's a prime example of just that.
Yeah, and also the 24/7 live monitoring is also something to mention, I reckon. Here are, the basic modules or the products, I would say, Sarah.
Yes, so to the left in the screen here, we see the most common solution elements that we implement with our customers. Typically, to the upper left, you start out with the demand planning, of course, which is both statistical forecasting and also event planning, promotion planning, and so on. That's why we use the umbrella demand planning. Inventory planning is, of course, to manage the inventory with all the parameters that go into there. Supplier planning is all the management of supplier volatility and reliability. And these days, it's become much more important than ever because of the disruptions in all the supply chains. So our customers are having great value of using our advanced tools to help out with that. All of this ends up in replenishment planning. So today's order, today's cut order, and then all orders ahead in time. That's something we call a supply chain plan or a supply plan. And then, of course, we have the analytics, which is a real key. Well, we're going to get back to that later in the presentation today. And some of our customers also have integrated supply chains. So it could be from a supplier into a central DC, then to a regional DC, then even out to stores. And then you need multi-echelon inventory optimization capabilities. So that's the basic. To the right, we see the more strategic solutions. Of course, sales and operations planning is key there. Price management and price optimization, and also assortment planning and category management is also key to a lot of our customers.
Maybe you can tell us a bit more what kind of industry you are serving in the world.
Yeah, so Blue Ridge is heavy in the wholesale distribution area, but also have customers within manufacturing and production planning, and also retail customers. But our soft spot, if you want, is typically in distribution wholesale, where we have our main bulk of customers around the globe. Hard goods is a big industry. Spare parts that we're going to talk about today is also quite significant. And then you have food and food wholesale, food service. It's also typical customer segments within Blue Ridge.
All right. And maybe we can introduce Hesterberg. So Thomas, maybe you can say something more about Hesterberg as a wholesale company.
Yeah, the Hesselberg Group is a family-owned company consisting of 14 companies, and we have 300 employees, and we're located in Norway and Sweden. And the main drivers is the 4 companies for construction in Norway, and material handling in Hasselberg truck with forklifts, and machine in Sweden is mainly servicing the mining industry in Sweden.
Yeah.
And of course, we have aftermarket and service is of course a big part of all those three companies.
So this is one part of your company. Maybe explain what we're seeing right now. What kind of trucks we see here?
Yeah, these are for machine. These are the line of products we use to sell in Norway. This is excavators and those kind of things. we are the dealers for Komatsu, Bomag, and Manitou in the machine group.
Yeah, but you also have another part of your company is dealing with material handling trucks.
Exactly, and this is the big part of this is Lindy. This is the big driver here, and CVS Ferrari is for the big forklifts or container handlers on the harbors and so on.
Okay, we have to understand Norway now, and what is the complexity and challenge of distribution, especially on parts in Norway. Maybe you can explain a bit there.
Yeah, as you see on the map, the main service vans and the offices are in the south of Norway, up the middle of Norway, and after that you're a long stretch of land, if I can say that, here, and then the service is in the north is very long. It's vast distances. It's between one customer could be 600 kilometers and a lot of driving time. And in the winter is or even more difficult.
So, and that's why you have these white bars on this smaller map that to explain the length of Norway compared to the north tip of Denmark into the mid-range of Italy.
Exactly. If you tilt it, you have the end is ending up in Italy. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what you mentioned, the weather is different in Norway than in Italy, so that's adding to the complexity of your environment.
Yeah, and the northern Norway is also it's very cold in winter, so it's difficult. Yeah.
All right. Can you tell us a bit more about your industry? What is needed about service and in the heavy machinery industry?
Yeah, it's very important to have the correct parts for us to maintain the customers for the service maintenance and also the repairs. Mm-hmm. And customers are focused on having their uptime at 100% if possible. So we have some customers we have special contracts with, like rental forklifts if they go over a distance of what do you call it, repair time, first time fix rates. Yep. So they have also fines we can have if they don't have the time frame fixed in the time frame they ask.
So what I see here, you have possible fines of thousands of euros. So you have to have your spare parts ready for your customers.
Absolutely. So it's crucial to have the right tool to maintain those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's good to know. And you have in the heavy industry with downtime of machines, also in automotive, you have a similar environment that you need to have your parts delivered on time. Otherwise, you will be facing a lot of fines.
Exactly.
Maybe you can tell us more about the warehouse operation and what kind of environment you have and what kind of amount of parts, etc. you have.
Yeah, we had the last year we had a new building built. So we have a 5,000 square meter new facility for logistics. So we have 3 warehouse elevators and a huge floor. What do you call it? Floor maintenance for the spare parts. And then we have a lot of spare parts on stock, but we also see we have a lot of non-stock items, which we are implementing to have policies on.
Yeah, but it's good to see, how many parts you have and how many SKUs, I would say, and also stocked and non-stocked, and also what the number of SKUs. Maybe Sverre, is this a normal situation? We're getting into the supply chain excellence part of your implementation, but do you recognize it as a quite recognizable environment you are dealing with?
Yes, it is. This is typical for a distribution wholesaler that they have they have so many items. Actually, Hasselberg isn't that extreme, but they have enough items to realize that the complexity is so big that unless they have a sophisticated tool that can capture their complexity and do the planning in an automated way, it's going to cost them a lot of man hours to manage, and also the risk of getting into trouble because you mismanage or plan in the wrong manner is pretty imminent.
Yeah, right. So how do you create a supply chain excellence in this kind of environment?
Well, in many cases, I think Hesselberg is a good example of a kind of a company's journey with Blue Ridge. The starting point for them, as many other companies, is that they have an ERP that is transactional, so it doesn't do any optimization, or they have a poor planning system that is outdated. And in the case of Hesselberg, the latter was the case. They had a planning system that dated 10, 11, 12 years back in time. And at the time, I think Thomas told me back in time that it probably was suitable then, but then they grew out of it and they saw that this gets too complex and we are experiencing too much pain. So we need to do something with it. So the CEO of the group said to them, we need to do something. Go into the market and see what planning solutions we can get out there. And that brought them then into a cycle with a few contenders to become their new supplier of a planning tool. And they ended up choosing us and implemented that. And right now they are, I would say they're up and running and experiencing the benefits of the system and see that they can do even more. And that's really an interesting part where our customer becomes really hungry for more and wants to expand the solution to more areas of the business. That's really cool.
You need, and that's the part of expanding horizontally and vertically in other parts of your company, but also maybe upstream or downstream in your company.
That's exactly it. And Thomas, you may comment on the fact that you have a lot of these service vehicles. They carry stock, the service kits and spare parts. And right now we have included all those cars as well and or vehicles. How many did we have there?
The service vans, we have about 150 service technicians and about 125 service vans for the 3 companies. So it's everything is implemented, but the Hesselberg machine we need to work more because they don't use a third-party tool, another tool to implement the spare parts.
Exactly.
But we're on the way, and we also implemented the vehicles, not the forklifts we sell and the excavators also inside to have some reporting on those as well.
So maybe Sverre, and maybe Thomas can comment on later, but Sverre, why is the aftermarket so challenging?
Yeah, so the aftermarket is challenging in many ways. First, we, and this is a realization that we have with many customers, when they have their own service people and service vans going around, you really feel the pressure of having the spare parts available, because if you don't, then they miss out on their service assignment, which means that they have to return back with not completed tasks, and also the billing rate then goes down. So that's when you have your own people doing it, you really feel it. But in general, in the spare parts business, you have a lot of fluctuations in demand, and there's a wide range of products, and it's hard to forecast. Some of these items, they have a good volume and clear seasonality, so those are less difficult to forecast, but there is a lot of intermittent and even lumpy demand in this business. And we tend to say that you can do so much with the forecasting model. So yes, of course, we also have intermittent demand forecasting models, but they can't solve everything. So you need more. So what we did and we use that across many industries, is to add a machine learning capability to create what we call intelligent min-max levels that are recalculated every night. So that adds up to on top of the demand forecasting and increases the likelihood of not being out of stock on these difficult items. Then you have unreliable supply. And the disruption in the supply chain has been covered also by supply chain media many times. Our customers experience that ever so often. And I think you also, Thomas, can feel the pain every day. Your suppliers are out of stock more and more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a demand we can't. Yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah, and you are also tied to some specific suppliers, so it's not so easy for you to just swap to other suppliers. So that's also a bit of a challenge. And then service, the availability is key, but it's very hard to manage many thousand items and calculate an optimal service level goal and manage a portfolio across categories and A, B, C, X, Y, Z classifications. So that's really hard, and Blue Ridge took the consequence of that and embedded the whole business process into one screen, so that the user has a really easy task of setting those service level goals, and also to have them updated as they go along in time. So that's one thing. And then the large distribution networks. You saw the picture of or the map of Norway. It's when you want to be high on service through a 2,000 kilometer long country, you need to have local depots or warehouses or service vans. And all of that needs to be tied together in the solution, so that the solution overviews everything from the supplier to the service van. And that's also quite complex. And then, and then when you buy all of this stuff, it's not only about maintaining service. It's a lot about logistical optimization and buying profitably. And many of these supply chain planning solutions, the notion of buying smart or buying profitably is actually absent. And for most of our customers, in particular in the spare parts, it's really crucial.
Yeah, I can imagine that the forecasting of spare parts is already very difficult with my operation researcher, I know. But also what you mentioned, having also kind of hubs in your vans makes it very complex. Not so much one warehouse where you have all your spare parts and all your parts, but also in the vans itself. So it's a very complex environment.
Indeed so. Yeah.
Thomas, you realize as a company as Hasselberg that you need something new. So can you get back, I think probably 1 year or a bit more than 1 year, how it all started?
Yeah, we started with, like Sverre said, the CEO of the group asked the machine purchase manager to have a look inside and see what we needed. And we had a little group going in, checking, and we had some vendors coming in to show their products. And in the 11th hour, we got Blue Ridge in, and what we decided then was they took our data into their tool, and then came back to us, and they showed us our items and showed us what they could do with their tool live, instead of showing us the slides like everyone else. We saw the tool live.
And how long does it take from the first start before you get the live demo with your data?
It took because of we had to have our developers free for this thing. I think we used a week to get the data out and into Blue Ridge and back again. I think it was more than that, Sverre? 1 week?
No, I think it went in 1 week.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe, Thomas, you can explain how you define your needs, because a lot of companies they would like all things available, but what is it, what you really need, and how do you find this?
Yeah, all the needs listed there is what we came up with to see, but what we were missing out on was all the analytics reporting and so on we can see, and then the simulations we can see on the service levels. So we were having this business case was very crucial for us to see what we can gain for our business.
Yeah. So what was, if you look at that list, this concise list of needs, what was the most essential part different what you had before?
We thought we had a service level. So the service level was crucial, because if the service level is low, the mechanics have a longer first time fix rate. And the reporting capabilities was also high on the list. You can check all the overstock and inactive parts, all these things we didn't have.
Okay. And I can expect, profitable buying and that kind of stuff. With a better overview, you would have a better insight where to buy and how to buy.
Of course.
Yeah. Specifically about ABC and XYZ classification. Maybe Sverre, you can explain a bit more what companies are looking at when they have a Blue Ridge application in this matter.
Yes, so what we're seeing here is just a screen cut of the application, and it actually shows then typically you want to have a selection of your company. So there is one location, the central location of truck we have chosen here. So then you ask the system to do an ABC or rather ABCD classification, if applicable, throughout your whole assortment. And then we ask our customers to define different service level strategies. So it means that how exposed are you to drop in service on your A items, B items, and so on. And then we ask our customers to define up to 6 comparable service level goal strategies. And then we let the system calculate, well, what is the effect of the different strategies. And of course, what we want to get out of it is with each strategy, what will be our average fill rate, and what will be our average service level goal, both in units and in volume. And of course, how much stock are we then going to build based on the choice of strategy. And the thing is, once you simulate back and forth here, you get a good feel of how this will hit your company, both positively and negatively. And then you actually select one strategy and you say, I'm going to try this out. And if it works, why don't we let the system actually schedule this and do it automatically? And that's the button you see and in the upper right part of the screen there, you see schedule. That means that we can say to the system every Monday, first Monday in every month, do this exercise once more and assign updated service level goals across the board. And that's really it. This can be sophisticated and broken down to subcategories and everything. And this task that we're looking at here is actually one screen input. And my experience is that it's so big a task for many planners or companies that they never do it. They do it on gut feel or don't even have service level goals. But with this heavy lifting capability that the Blue Ridge has here, it can be done in the background and you can see the results without doing much. And our experience is that it's really, really appreciated. This is something that most planners cannot do, actually.
And Thomas, I can imagine that with your previous system, you didn't have this kind of simulation functionality.
No, we didn't. No. So this is a very good exercise for us to see when we go through it. Sometimes during the year we do this simulation to see also where we can be and where we can go inside a management meeting.
Okay. And talking about the management meeting, this is kind of a dashboard for the management overview, I would say. Sverre, can you explain a bit more?
Yeah. So in these companies there are. Let me put it this way. Many of the BI tools and data warehouses that you can get reporting capabilities from, they are generic. And if a planner wants to create a report, you need to go to a specialist and you need to place an order for a report, and you get it after 2 months or maybe never. What we thought we would do was actually to look at it from the planner's view or the buyer's view, and look around in the world and compile actually the needs that they communicated to us, regardless of being it in Vietnam or the US or Europe. And then we put it all together, and we have then reporting and analytics capability that is out of the box. So it's what we see around in the world that our users want to use. So it's already configured when you implement the software. And this is just an example of, actually it's a portion of a dashboard illustrating inventory analytics. What we also see in our user community is quite interesting. We see users excelling in this, so they copy and edit reports or create new reports, and we can see what they do, and we ask them then to share those reports with the rest of the world. So in the Blue Ridge community, there is a lot of sharing of reports, because there are, very bright minds around in these companies that we deal with, and they are most of the time willing to share these reports with other guys around in the world.
Thomas, when you were looking at this kind of software from Blue Ridge, what was your feedback on this kind of dashboard?
This was very well taken in, because this is what we didn't have before. Right in the face graphs and so on, we didn't have before. So this was excellent for us.
Can you give some final advice on how to select the right supply chain software vendor?
Yeah, what we did, like I said, we had a project which we went through, and then the main thing we ended up with, like I said, was when they showed us our own data. That was the main thing for us. We could see firsthand what kind of expectations we would have, and when we saw the expectations, we didn't believe it at first. We had to double check, but that was the main thing, to see and feel with our own numbers, and that was the greatest thing about the Blue Ridge.
Yeah. When I give presentations about selecting supply chain software, because I create the IT system map, I always advise companies do a test drive. It's like selecting a car. You don't select a car just on specs online. You do a test drive, and you go look under the hood. And what you state right here, you have to look under the hood, what kind of engine it has and how it drives, and is it fitted for your purpose. So that's always very important. Don't depend on PowerPoint slide. I would say get rid of this PowerPoint slide by the vendors, because they are overselling. So just look under the hood. Exactly. And then you go into the phase of the implementation. So maybe Sverre, or could you explain more how to approach implementation of all this?
Yeah, so when we do the sales process, most of the sales processes, we as sales and pre-sales associates in Blue Ridge, we are quite deep into the discussions with the customers to understand their needs. So that's the pre-sales phase, if you want. And based on that, we then design the solution. This is actually what we see that you should be having based on your outline of your business process needs and pain points. And then when we go into this project phase, it's a kind of a handover from the pre-sales to the project guys. So we are, it's very important and for the sales guys to document what we hear, what we perceive, and get it validated by the prospect to be the customer, so that when we get into the project, there shouldn't be any surprises. Of course, we need to do a BPA and technical planning and everything, but it shouldn't be big surprises in those phases. And of course, when we do that blueprint phase, then there comes an evaluation where we look for confirmation that the system actually does what the customer expects, and also define any gaps that may occur. And then, of course, we define the solution and configure it to the business needs, and then we enable the customer, which is then doing the basic training and starting the deployment of the system. Many people have a sort of an experience of this being a big bang, but with the supply chain planning system, it isn't really a big bang. It's launching each and one supplier or location, if it's a store or department in the store, in a controlled manner, and there is no really standing on the edge of a cliff here. It's a very planned and controlled deployment.
Thomas, you are on the customer side, so this is a vendor approach. What is your view on this? How they approach it, and what is it? How you apply IT systems within Hasselberg?
I think that this was a very good exercise for all us as well, because we were extremely thankful for the good product managing was done, because we had the implementation started in December 2020 and we're up and running in May, June.
Okay, wow.
So that was very fast and was very good planning all the way, and the meetings were done via Teams, the milestones, the decisions, everything was handled very extremely and quickly.
If we talk about managing this kind of IT project, what are the key essential points in your opinion, Thomas?
I think the product manager's standpoint was the best thing for this project, I think, because they had everything under control. They had everything lined up. The meetings were implemented in forehand. We also had to use developers from our side for the ERP system to cohese with that project. So that worked. We had a little seance where they had a too long a discussion, so we had to cut through and say this is how we are going to do it, and then everything was on track again.
And who made the call in that kind of meeting?
That was me at that time to stop the decision making or the discussion.
You also told you had 1 hour training sessions, and you did it on purpose with MS Teams. Can you explain what is the essence of how to train people online?
The training was online with the Teams, and it was very useful. But we are experiencing that when you are in a Teams meeting for training, to have the cameras on at all time, because we have to have how do you say it? You have to have focus, and you have to see the focus.
Yeah. Did you experience a lot of diversion from your initial plan if you go through the previous slides and when you have implemented it in 6 months?
Diversion, just the one small changes because of when you are in how do you call it in English? When you are in or when you, I don't know the word in English now.
Say the Norwegian, Thomas.
When you are I drift.
Oh, when you're operational.
Operational, yeah. Then you have to account for that as well. So they were in the middle of some projects they had to do as well. So we had to prolong a little bit, or just a little bit.
So maybe you can tell us a bit more, Thomas, about the training and how to go live.
Yeah, the training everything was set up fine by Blue Ridge, so we just followed the training schedule. We trained a couple of people from the different companies. We also had we had a new guy in Sweden, so he just added on in the beginning. But the training was well done, and then they had to go through a certification at the end.
Okay. And what is the lifeline? Because how do you use that?
Well, maybe I should start. The lifeline is actually a concept of Blue Ridge, and the thinking here is that you don't just do a project and then leave the customer. Now you're on support, so and that's it. So help yourself, because we know that when you're in a project, you are on your toes, and we get all the attention we want. But when the project is finished, it's like the air goes out of the balloon, so to speak. And in order to make sure that the customer is taken well care of and also continues to develop, then it is essential for us to sit together and do analytics, find out where you're hurting, and be connected. And that's what we do through a Lifeline program, which is basically that we meet regularly and look at the situation, analyze it, and make a plan to improve and use more of the functionality in the system. So that's the Lifeline concept in Blue Ridge.
All right. When we get to the next part, so how did it help you, or how did it impact your performance?
We started, when we started using it, we said we can see that when every time we implement something like this, we have to buy in more parts, of course, and then we saw the service level rising.
Wait up, I have to add my screen again. Sorry.
But everything was after a little while. We received all the stocks we ordered at the first, and then we saw that the stock service level rised and the overstock levels dropped over time.
Yeah.
But we still have more to do to make everything more better.
Okay, to improve it, but if you looking back, what are your expectations when you implemented this? Do you expect this kind of improvement? So what is your view on that?
Yeah, the expectation was a little bit lower than the figures that came out at the end, because I think Sverre will tell you that he didn't want to go too high.
Yeah.
So we can do a miss, but the expectations were bigger than we saw in the beginning of the project.
And did you do a return on investment beforehand? And did you do a recalculation afterwards?
Excuse me?
Did you do a return on investment for this kind of implementations upfront? To calculate.
Yeah, so you're talking about the business case, Martijn?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
Did you do create a business case, then calculated the business case, and did you also did it afterwards, after this kind of figures that you proved right on your business case?
We did it up front, yes, and also we had a meeting with the whole CFOs of the group to explain how it went after we had implemented. So we showed, but we're still in the process, so we're still having to show the numbers as we go further.
Yeah, all right. Sverre, can you explain? Is this quite common? This kind of results and this kind of short term?
It really depends on the industry we're in. Let's say that I was in a totally different industry, like food service.
Mm-hmm.
Food service is normally on 98.5%, 99%. So then the potential for increased service level achievement isn't that high. But and it's really simple, because it goes so fast around, and it's substitutable, and the restaurant needs the beef, so you can't be out of stock. So that's that industry, and they already also have a high turnover. So in the hard goods industry, it's actually more common to see this. And if you take a starting point like Hesselberg, being down to 85 to 90% service level is actually not so uncommon. And large amounts of overstock is also quite common. I've seen many companies with up to 50% overstock.
Mm-hmm.
And the paradox is that they don't even know it. And when we put the numbers in the system, it becomes clear, of course. So these numbers that we see here, they're not so uncommon actually in hard goods, I would say.
And Thomas, I was wondering, looking back, do you get now better insights of which parts were overstocked, and maybe to some surprise that you were getting the advice, to lower certain inventories? Was it, or did you already expect these kind of pointers?
When we saw the project, we expected it when we started, yes, but we didn't expect it to be this big. And we are trying to do some policies on how we can do the overstock and how we can send it back to vendors, have some campaigns to sell out the overstock.
Yeah, and on the other hand, I can also imagine when you have this kind of insight, you have a better feeling which parts are vulnerable because of shortages in the supply chain upstream and that kind of stuff, that you have more time to focus on the right necessary parts to buy where there's shortages and very high need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If Martijn, if I may comment on that, one thing is that the system can calculate an optimal service level, which is all fine.
Yeah.
But then there is also the aspect of the people that do customer care and get feedbacks from the customers, and especially the service people, of course. They will also give inputs to the planning team that this particular product is very important to the customer, which means that we get an input that even though the system suggests a 95% service level, we may actually override that and put it on 99. And that's where the attribute management capability of the system comes into play.
I can imagine with this kind of dashboard and this kind of insight, you have better conversations internally with your buyer, but also with your customer service department to your customers, that you have different kind of conversations than beforehand, isn't it, Thomas?
Exactly, and we do that very often now to see where to go next, if there's something we can handle on our side or the vendor side.
Yeah. All right. So this has been very successful, in a very short time. I think 6 months. You mentioned. So
Yep.
can you imagine what are the next steps?
The next steps are, the first step we took now is that we are down from 7 purchasers to 6. That was the first step. So we are one less, and that's a good step forward. When we are also going to do some more training and onboarding a couple of new people because of the situation we are in, and then we're going to use the tool and the reporting more vastly after this one. So the companies have to do more and more with the tools they have, and also for the spare parts and the vans and the vehicles.
So you're also taking into account the vans with their moving inventory, I would say, into account of the whole system and the whole inventory levels.
Exactly, because inside a region you have a certain kind of a product line.
Yeah.
So you can actually see what kind of product line is in that region, and then fill up the service vans with those kind of typical spare parts.
Yeah. And also you're going to extend to the main products, dus the machines, the material handling machines, the forklift trucks, and so forth, next to the spare parts.
Exactly, just to have some reporting and see what should be on stock and so on. Yeah,
because
have more oversight.
Because next to renting, selling spare parts, you're also renting out machines. So the whole portfolio of products and services is becoming more complex and larger, I would say, in this environment.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And particularly the price management and price optimization, because what we see in the market right now, there's a huge increase of the cost of parts and raw materials. Do you have any ideas how to use this? How you're going to use this functionality within Blue Ridge?
Do you mean the price optimization?
Yeah.
We are looking into it. We have a side project which is going on to see also with our own numbers into their system to see, because we know that there's a lot to take in with pricing. It's a big job. So the tool is necessary, I think.
Sverre, on this point, I had a lot of conversations with supply chain directors and executives, wondering what is the price elasticity of certain product groups or SKUs, and can we raise our prices? What will it do for our margin and our EBIT, and even also for our market share? What is your opinion about what the power of pricing optimization in this particular day and age?
Yeah, so this can easily be perceived as a rather simple task, which is let me calculate the elasticity, and then I can calculate the optimal price. But in the situation as for example with Hesselberg, it's much more complicated. Many of these companies, they just don't sell the products just like that out of the warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
They have different price bands for different customer categories,
Mm-hmm.
and there is also this concept of bids. So they are bidding for bigger contracts that may last for 2, 3, 4 years, and of course bid management is also tightly linked to price optimization. And it's also a question in the company with the large overstocks. One thing is that there is a question of whether you are leaving your money on the table. So you have too low prices. You did a cost plus approach, and more a mechanical approach to the market instead of investigating what the market is willing to pay, also considering competitive pricing and so on. But the other side is when you have overstocks, then of course you can actively use price optimization to drive your overstock out of your warehouse. So there are many facets to this that you don't normally think of.
And I can imagine that companies who have already dealt with trying out the elasticity of prices of certain product groups are better prepared in this ongoing storm when you have a lot of raising costs of raw material and parts than if you don't have a clue and you don't know which levers to deal with.
Yes, and I think in this today's situation where you have galloping transportation costs and also the product prices when you buy from China or overseas is rapidly increasing, and you need to understand how much of this can I then turn into increased price in the market. Many of the companies we talk to, they don't have a clue about what to do, and they're totally in the dark. And of course, then it becomes very difficult to maintain your competitive position and do the right thing. So I think just because of that, I think price management in itself and price optimization is coming much more of a center for most of these companies.
I reckon so. And Thomas, you as a CIO are more on the IT side, but I can imagine that you are bringing business functionality at the table where your buyers and your commercial colleagues are very happy that they have more feeling about what it is with prices and optimization.
Yeah, I imagine they can have a tool which is now they calculate with a cost plus version. So I think with this kind of tool, they would have another gain in the market, I think.
Yeah, I can reckon so. If we're going to wrap it up, we are close to the finalizing the interesting conversation in this webinar, and we get to the Q&A. But maybe you can summarize the key success factors. Maybe first, Thomas, can you summarize the key success factors in your opinion?
Yeah, we have a more and better analytics and reporting tool to see where we are and where we need to be. And we have a different kind of session now where we are reporting into the management meetings, so the whole group can have a say in where to go next. And also the training and certification of the guys using the tool is very crucial for us.
Sverre, what can you add as the key success factors, because you are on track of this whole implementation with Hasselberg?
Yes, I think this is something that stands out on Hesterberg, but it's actually quite generic for the customers we implement with. First, having a clear opinion and perception of what is the use case, and get that user acceptance when you implement the solution is key. Then, of course, be meticulous about the business processes when you do the BPA. That's key. And of course, training. I say training, but it's really, really key. And I think if anything is core in this and key to the user acceptance, it's actually the training. And it's both the training when you try to launch the system and deploy it and so on, but it's also the users having access to a training arena, a learning management system. So we actually created that so all the users can, on demand, take classes. We have 200 different classes in the learning management platform. That's quite key. And then document and be a little bit formal about things in the project. If you have an important decision, write it down and put it in the minutes of meeting and get the sign off on it. That's key. And of course, these projects, they need the buy-in from the line management and even the top management, and being a little bit formalistic so that you actually engage the top management to take part in the project. It's also key. They don't need to spend that much time in the project, but the key things that we bring up for decisions, they need to take part in.
One particular thing, what you're mentioning, Sverre, is the documentation of all decisions. What I know from ERP heydays in 10, 20 years back, that a lot of the times, when consultancy firms are implementing an ERP system, you don't have a blueprint or a written down way of how it is implemented. So you don't know the parameter setting in your ERP systems. And I reckon that, that is I think would say a lack of understanding. So you need to have better understanding of the parameter setting, how it is implemented, isn't it?
Yes, and this is quite different from sort of starting on scratch with an empty shell, which is often the case with an ERP system. So this is actually a best practice approach that goes towards every industry. So the approach is slightly different when we work with food service as to spare parts, for instance. The issues at hand tend to differ a little bit. There are common factors, of course, but also industry-specific problems that you need some domain expertise to actually be successful in your implementations with.
All right, I would like to go over to some questions. Maybe there are some questions from the audience. But to start off, in the previous slide, you mentioned, Sverre, that you need to celebrate your success. So I was wondering, Thomas, how did you celebrate your success with this implementation?
We celebrated with cake. We had some discussions with the CEO. We had some overall discussion on how it went, and that's the celebration we had for now. We're still in it, so it's still ongoing.
And to get a better feeling, you still work a lot of the times remotely, so you don't get together that much, isn't it?
Exactly.
So but Martijn, I'd like to comment on this. This is quite key, actually. Many of the companies we work with come with a culture where the planners or the buyers, they are at the end of the hallway. They are the last people to get an advanced system. They are not used to being celebrated at all. So what we have done is to create reports where we display how much profit each planner brings to the company, and then you can celebrate.
Wow, yeah, it's different, and it's maybe also a cultural Norwegian thing, and maybe maybe in the US it's different. I don't know. Do you know, Sverre, how users companies using Blue Ridge in the US are celebrating all this?
Yes, I've heard many jungle stories, and maybe it's more common in the US to be more outspoken and not so afraid to talk about how good you are. Maybe it's a more European thing to be more modest and and not scream about yourself, shout about yourself. I don't know, but I've heard many stories about celebrations in the US that are quite creative, I have to say.
But Thomas, I do think having implemented the first phase of this kind of system in 6 months is amazing, and even if you look at the numbers of savings and improvement, that's I would say tremendous. Were you aware of that or not?
Aware of the expectations?
No, aware of this kind of success in just 6 months' time.
No, we had the plan for the implementation, but it was not expected that it would go so smoothly.
No. What are your next steps, Thomas? In this matter. So, what are your plans for the next month to implement?
We are now in a session of onboarding some new people, as I said, so they can have training, so they can take this a step further. Because we need to do more with the things we implemented, so it doesn't stop.
Okay. All right. So we are out of time. It is great talking to you. I could go on for a while, but we will do that in the lounge. So right after this, I will pause this session, and Thomas, Sverre, and myself will go into this lounge, and we'll be sitting at table number 1. So in the audience, if you would like to join, feel free to have a further discussion with the 3 of us in the lounge at table 1. Next, what you see here on the left-hand side, you see the IT support map with a lot of supply chain software vendors. This is the map I created twice a year. And on the right-hand side, you see a link with all kind of content about what Blue Ridge is providing. And with this, I would like to thank you, Thomas, for joining us for the first time speaking about your success. So, Thomas, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And Sverre, thank you for your explanation of the Blue Ridge functionality and what the key of success of this kind of implementation is. So, Sverre, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And for the audience, thank you for joining us. And I hope you like this. And if you want to talk further, please join us in the lounge. If not, thank you for joining us. And maybe we'll see you next week when we talk about our top 28 supply chain executives. We talk about supply chain leadership, totally different subject, also important, which levers supply chain leaders should taken care of in this turbulent times. So thanks again for joining us, and maybe we'll see you in the lounge. If not, we'll see you at next week webinar, or maybe we'll see you in the new year. Thank you, and see you later.